It's been more than 50 years since humans last ventured to the moon. One thing that hasn't changed since then is that this kind of space voyage still takes multiple steps. The starting point is the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where NASA's massive Space Launch System, the SLS, is primed to send the crew of Artemis II on a trip around the moon's far side. Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialists Christina Cook and Canada's Jeremy Hansen have been selected for the crucial test flight that's meant to open a new era in lunar exploration.
Our mission on Artemis II is to be the first crew that takes this SLS rocket, rides it to space, and then flies the Orion capsule out into deep space, proves its deep space capabilities from a human life support point of view, from a manual piloting point of view, the ability to dock with something, a lunar lander or a space station in the future, and that's our job.
Jeremy Hansen will be making his first trip to space as part of the Artemis II crew. After years of training, he's imagined every step of the mission, including the launch, when the SLS lifts off with its 4 core stage engines blazing, plus an extra push from its 2 solid fuel boosters.
That's a very rumbly ride, those solid rocket motors, while they're burning. So I think inside there'll be a lot of this shaking and going on, and we'll really start to feel the G build up as we head to the point where the fuel mass is getting low. And I do think there'll be moments of like, is that normal? And then very quickly be like, well, I guess so, we're still here.
Just 2 minutes after launch, the spent booster rockets are discarded while the core stage continues to fire. 1 minute later, the protective fairing that covers the Orion crew capsule falls away, followed by the ejection of the launch abort system. The crew is now in orbit. After 8 minutes of flight, the main engine shuts down and the core stage separates. But the crew won't be heading to the moon just yet. Instead, they'll do a 90-minute lap around Earth while they get busy with their first tasks of the mission.
Reed and Victor will be at the controls at that point. They'll be monitoring the systems, making sure the solar arrays are coming out properly, any troubleshooting that's needed there. And they'll be monitoring the upper stage of the rocket that's timing certain burns that we need to be in the right place. And Christine and I have to get out of our seats right away and just start testing some of the basic systems. So setting up the toilet, setting up the water dispensing system, getting out some of the electronic support equipment to make sure that we are confident we're good for a day in space. Because the next thing that happens is we accelerate again, and then we head out into this high Earth orbit.
The rest of the first day is spent on one more long looping orbit around Earth that takes the spacecraft out to a distance of 60,000 kilometers. On the way out, the Orion capsule separates from the rocket's upper stage and then swivels around for a simulated rendezvous. This is a critical demonstration of Orion's ability to maneuver with humans at the controls.
It's a choreographed event where we're all monitoring closures. Yes, automation could do it, but if as a backup, humans can do it, because in the future, if we can't rendezvous, you get stuck in space.
After more systems checks, the crew has some time to sleep before the next big step. It begins when the capsule plunges back toward Earth until it's skimming just above the atmosphere as it accelerates around the planet. It's a spectacular ride that leads up to the translunar injection burn, when Orion fires its engine and propels the crew toward the moon at 39 times the speed of sound. For the next several days, the crew coasts on a figure-8 trajectory that takes them out to lunar space. During the approach, the moon looms larger and larger in Orion's window. Depending on exactly when Artemis II launches, the crew could see most of the far side illuminated by the sun, including areas that were in darkness during the Apollo missions of the 1960s and 70s.
Surface is fine and powdery.
Joe just are super excited about what we might observe on the far side, since human eyes have never seen it. And the human eye brain combination is really adept at picking up strange things and pulling out differences on a surface. They've been training us, and we'll have cameras in the window. We'll have times just recording in a voice recorder what we're observing.
After their lunar encounter, the astronauts are on the return leg of their journey with an itinerary that includes more testing of emergency procedures, as well as some time for sending messages back home. Then, on the final day, it's time for a high-speed re-entry into Earth's atmosphere.
And trying to get everything tucked away, make sure that the spacecraft's in the right configuration. But stuff has to happen, and it is on a clock, and there's no pausing it or delaying it. And it's kind of a high-pressure day.
After separating from its service module, the Orion crew capsule enters the atmosphere at about 40,000 kilometers per hour. During the next 20 minutes, its job will be to shed that velocity, mostly through friction with the air, when temperatures on the outside of the capsule are expected to reach about 2,700 degrees Celsius. Finally, once it slows enough, the capsule releases a series of parachutes, allowing it to splash down safely on the Pacific Ocean. There's a lot riding on this mission, not just for the crew, but for the entire Artemis program. Success here means the stage will be set for future flights, including a landing on the moon's surface as early as 2028.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.